In this module, we'll begin examining 3 epistemic difficulties that arise when one attempts to draw their morality uncritically from some allegedly authoritative moral report. So uncritically accepting the dictates of moral reporters, even infallible ones, still raises multiple issues. Such reports are often subject to interpretation. They're reported secondhand, and they're tainted in other ways as well. Further, without a prior moral sense based upon principles and reasons, one can't really evaluate the claims of any given moral reporter to moral insight. Now, this is important both because we need to select an authoritative moral reporter and because people may disagree upon which reporter is in fact the definitive moral reporter. To illustrate this, we're going to consider the Bible as a moral report. We'll find that people in fact use their own moral compass to sift through the Bible for moral teachings, and that our current moral codes reflect particular interpretations. They involve cherry-picking certain moral views and rejecting others, ignoring contradictory moral views, and so on. And this is by no means unique to the Bible. In specific, our examination will consider 3 phenomena. The phenomenon of interpreting a moral reporter, the phenomenon of conflicting reports within a moral report, the phenomenon of seemingly false or unacknowledged reports, cherry-picking some of the reports and ignoring others. In each case, we'll see that the Bible provides us with examples of how a straight and uncritical acceptance of a moral report is going to prove problematic. So our first case study is going to be an examination of interpretation, and we're going to focus on the practice of usury. That is the loaning of money for interest. Now, I should emphasize again that these are general arguments against uncritical acceptance of any moral report. They're not an attack on any specific religious belief or doctrine, or religious beliefs or doctrines generally. And in fact, in the case of usury, we find that many ancient world thinkers prohibited or spoke about limiting usury. They include Plato, Aristotle, Cicero, Seneca, and Buddha. They all spoke against usury. Quite early on in the history of the Christian church, a prohibition of usury was put into place. Now remember, usury is the lending of money for interest. And the Christian church reasoned that Jesus' expulsion of the moneylenders from the temple indicated the moral incorrectness of usury. The decrees of the Hebrew Bible, so 1 Samuel 22:2, 2 Kings 4:1, Isaiah 51, they were revived, and a new reference to usury in the New Testament was added, Luke 6:34. Now, citing the authority of those texts, the Catholic Church banned clergy from charging interest in the First Council of Nicaea in 325 ACE, or after the Common Era. Charlemagne, king of the Franks and emperor of the Holy Roman Empire, which ironically was not an empire, it wasn't holy, and it wasn't Roman, declared usury to be a criminal offense. In 1179, the Lateran Council forbade usury for laypersons. The anti-usury movement gathered force in the late Middle Ages, and it reached its peak in about 1311 when Pope Clement V totally banned the practice and declared null and void all secular law defending usury. Now, despite papal and legislative bans, loopholes in the law and contradictions in the church's arguments began to appear. And soon, on the rising tide of commerce, the pro-usury movement began to grow. The rise of Protestantism, with its relatively pro-capitalist slant, strongly influenced this change. Indeed, while both Martin Luther and Calvin expressed reservations about the practice of usury, neither of those men actually condemned it outright. Though Calvin listed 7 situations in which interest was sinful, people interpreted his position as generally sanctioning the charging of interest. As a result of these influences, around 1620, usury became a matter of personal conscience as opposed to an offense against public morality to be suppressed by any Christian government. Usury became a sin, then, only if excessive. So as we've seen, then, one difficulty with interpretation lies in the potential to use interpretations as a means of justifying justifying some view by substituting the authority of the moral report for the process of giving reasons for the view. And specifically, one can intentionally or unintentionally project one's own moral views into an authoritative source, thereby giving those views the trappings of moral authority without ever giving reasons for the correctness of those views. So, for example, the Bible really doesn't have any explicit prohibition on abortion, yet some people cite the Bible as a moral basis for banning abortion. Indeed, another problem with moral reports lies in the paucity of guidance that such reports often exhibit. For instance, the Bible doesn't comment on birth control, gene therapy, global warming, minimum wage, gun control, etc., etc. So people who claim to base their views about these issues on the Bible are likely projecting their views into the text. Now, in the next lecture module, we'll pivot from looking at problems with interpretation to looking at conflicting dictates within a single moral report.